And you're bang on time for another week, of course, of this month, the tail end of June. And I trust, as always, you've had a lovely restorative weekend and you're ready for the week ahead. My name is Dibala, and here we have Talent Point coming your way here on Morning Prime just to get the latest on the political beat in the country. Yesterday was a very heavy-handed week, I should say, or heavy-going regarding the Finance Bill 2023, which saw the passage through Parliament, now awaiting the assent of the President. But there could be some, of course, processes that will be scuppered along the way because we have challenges as far as court orders are concerned. Some of the legislators are challenging the Finance Bill as it is. And you know it, Raila Odinga is back. And we'll be back this week, of course, to continue with the protests. What does it mean for the resumption of protests as far as the passage of the bill is concerned? Way too late? Have we passed that junction and crossed the Rubicon? That is the probing question. There are lots that we'll be discussing as well as far as devolution is concerned with the legislators who are the MCAs on the ground also challenging the budget process there. They want a salary hike. The debate continues as well. And what does it mean also that we have an agreement with the European Union as far as the partnership is concerned? That is a trade partnership. There are questions which are being raised regarding this as far as the East African community is concerned. Kenya is an emerging economy, and the country around us, they are the least developed countries. And this portends such a challenge as far as moving forward is concerned. We feel like, or Kenya feels like, since it is an emerging economy, the other countries being the least developed countries, that is an albatross on Kenya's neck. They want to move forward, but they feel their foot or their leg is chained to a ball as far as moving ahead. But what does it concern? And as far as these legislators are concerned, because they're raising special umbrage with that. We have a lot to cover this morning. And joining me this morning is Gladys Bolshole, who's the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. We'll be joined later by Farah Malim, who is a Member of Parliament from Dadaab. Also will be joined by Dr. Makali Mulu, who is a Member of Parliament, Kitui Central. Also, we'll have Hilary Sigay, who's a Senator Bomet, here this morning to slice and dice some of these issues. All right, so you know what to do. Head over to our Twitter handle, which is KTN News. At KTN News, you can raise your queries, fire your questions there, chime in. Also, you can follow me at Dibala. That is my Twitter handle. But let's see what is fresh off the press this morning. Looking at the bold paper is all about academia right now. Schools defy ministry is what is headlining the front page of the Standard today. The numerous orders from Ministry of Education leadership are being ignored by heads of schools for what they term as impractical policy directions and lack of adequate funding from the government. Experts say the ministry appears powerless as only Teachers Service Commission holds sway. And this story is covered on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. And there's a probing question. Is Ruto, African diplomat, or playing to the gallery? A probing question. And of course, he represented Kenya at Paris, spoke quite movingly as far as climate change is concerned and financing in Africa. What a speech from the president. We were proud of him. And of course, we'll be looking at that and a raft of other issues as well. This is the Standard for you this morning. And man returns home after missing for 50 good years. The story is tucked away on page 3 of the Standard today. Ogier proves to be king of safari. President William Ruto with WRC Safari Rally winners Sebastian Ogier and his navigator Vincent Landai after presenting them with awards in Naivasha yesterday. That is a Standard. Looking also on the tease there, making of a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde of Kenya. It's all about Moses Kuria and what was stripping off his tongue last week. That story continues on page 10 and 11. By the way, is he in defiance of court orders? Right, we saw him full steam ahead going on with denigrating the media and people wondering why is he not really abiding by the court orders. Wagner chiefs 24-hour chaos in Russia. This is on one of the pages of the Standard this morning. And remember, we have Health and Science magazine that comes in handy for you every Monday. Wood being ill When being ill is a crime, let me look at it clearly and zoom in. When being ill is a crime, find out all that inside the magazine. And Soccer Gor wins 20th league title. This story continues on sport pages of the Standard this morning. This is how it looks. Make sure you grab a copy for yourself. All right, Daily Nation is up next, and this is the splash today. Return of terror. Security. We have resurgence of Somali terrorist group worrying as frequency of attacks increases in the country. Now, this is a niggling worry. The government has done a good job as far as silencing the guns in Pokot is concerned and Turkana. But in Lamu, it appears now we are always waiting for the other shoe to drop every weekend. And so far, we've lost 5 lives. And combining that particular incident in Salama and other constituency, the number is at 11 right now. Mandera County between June 3rd and 20th, a spate of Al-Shabaab attacks rocked Mandera County. In Wajir County, a bus traveling from Nairobi to Mandera on June 13th is shot by a gunman. Also, Al-Shabaab ambush targets. This is Al-Shabaab ambush targets a special operation group unit near Yumbis in Garissa County on June the 12th. In Lamu County, on June the 18th, there were twin attacks at Mlima Faru that claimed the lives of 2 KDF soldiers. On June 24th, we have also beheading there in Lamu West. And yesterday as well, we know 5 of Kenyan citizens were beheaded by Al-Shabaab. More than 20 people, including security officers, have been killed this month alone as suspected Al-Shabaab terrorists launched deadly attacks in frontier counties of Garissa, Wajir, Mandera and Lamu, raising concerns over the country's security preparedness amid plans to reopen the border with Somalia. And this is on page 6 and 7 of the Daily Nation this morning. And of course, we heard from the CS of Interior that they are alert and 20 billion shillings has been set aside to try and also get defense weapons, including, of course, ID detecting machines to try and deter the Al-Shabaab menace in the country. So they're keeping an eye on this developing issue here in the country, the resurgence of terror by the Al-Shabaab militants. Kenyan teenagers poor at problem solving. This is according to a new study here. And also, Nakumicha vows to take on Qatar's as she seeks to clean up NHIF and KEMSA. That is a story that you want to follow inside the Daily Nation on page 10. Odol's moment of truth in House vote showdown. That is a story that you want to follow on page 16 of the Daily Nation this morning. And it was a wrap, or it's a wrap. Ogier Severs' brilliant WRC Safari Rally win as Toyota claim bragging rights. Do you have the story on page 36, 37, 38, 39 and 40 of the Daily Nation this morning? This is how it looks. All right, if you like it, they say crown it. You can pick it up. You can pick it up for more information. The Star is up next. 3 fresh hurdles against Ruto's tax plan. 3 fresh hurdles against Ruto's tax plan is what is headlining the front page of The Star. LSK and unions to file new court cases against Bill as Azimio stages rally in Nairobi. And this story is on page 4 and 5 of The Star this morning. Weekend of rally and football champions. And you can see the president with the winners there, popping a champagne. Well, I can't see a champagne being popped there, but of course we can see the award given President William Ruto with Toyota Gazoo team celebrating the moment, and also Gor Mahia severing and soaking out the spotlight yesterday. We can see Gor Mahia coach Jonathan McKinsey celebrating with players after winning the FKF Premier League title at Kasarani Stadium yesterday. And Shabab beheads 5 during attack on Lamu villagers. D-Day for Oduola as senators decide on his impeachment. And doctors want law to allow the dying to donate organs. Medical experts at the Moi Teaching and Referral Hospitals in Eldoret, I should say, want Parliament to make a law that will provide a legal framework on how Kenyans can donate body organs before death. This story is tucked away on page 9 of the Star this morning, and President chides Azimio as he outlines his growth agenda. It's all about transformation strategy on page 6 of the Star this morning. Let's buckle down to some business. Total Africa Oil Kenya exits spook investors. A niggling worry there. Energy CS bets on India to save production dreams and shift from fossil fuels deems exploration prospects. You can follow the story inside the Business Daily on page 2 this morning. Treasury plots to dodge 280 billion shillings Eurobond bullet payment. And it says that Kenya's plan to buy back at least half of its 280.8 billion shillings, that is $2 billion. Debut Eurobond that matures in June next year is expected to see physical pressures resulting from the big ticket redemption. The move effectively splits the redemption in half, lessening the burden on the exchequer, which will have otherwise been required to make a sizable bullet payment to the sovereign board investors in one go. And on the sidebar, how Judge Majanja put Tuskys to death, carried to set minimum prices for select alcoholic beverages, and how diseases killing Kenyans have changed in 60 years. Get all the wiser as far as business is concerned with the Business Daily. Let's see what we have across the region. In Uganda, remember the iron sheets scandal? Now Museveni is to decide minister's life. That is a story that you can follow on page 4 and 5 and 6 of the Daily Monitor if you're waking up in Uganda. And unforgettable memories for young and old Alan Tebe. Right, you can read all about it also inside the Daily Monitor. And court to issue Justice Amoko burial place verdict by email. All that inside the Daily Monitor. Healthy living comes your way every Monday. Advances in the treatment of sickle cell disease. And that is on page 16 of the Daily Monitor. In Tanzania, what Tanzania's first tea auction means. Right, they're following suit of Kenya as far as tea auction is concerned. What does it mean for the country? You can follow the story inside the Citizen if you're waking up in not Tanzania this morning. USAID head underscores key role of PPPs in growth. Read all about it inside the Citizen. Let's head over to Rwanda. Rwanda appeals to DR Congo to observe good neighborliness. This comes after increased tension between the DRC Congo army and M23 rebels near the Rwandan border. This story continues on page 3 of the New Times this morning. The East African this week, it's all about budget. Remember the budget reading on last week, or the week before that, was an East African affair. IMF, World Bank have their way, according to the East African. The hand of the Bretton Woods institutions is conspicuous in the spending plans of East Africa economies as they grapple with debt, budget deficits, and pro-people projects, but hard times lie ahead. The story continues on page 8 and 9 of the East African, and we can see the unflappable smile of the president there on the world stage. This is with the president of the Prime Minister of France, Emmanuel Macron, and on the sidelines of the new Global Financial Pact Summit. Ruto stood out for his push for a change in world order. He got a standing ovation for his speech. UN again accuses Rwanda of aiding M23. Group of experts alleges that Kigali helps rebels with troop and reinforcement, equipment and command through the RDF. And what EAC push to ditch dollar means for the region. Get all the wise as well as far as the dollarization is concerned. That is tucked away inside the East African this morning. China Daily. China backs Russia in maintaining stability. That is what we have inside the China Daily this morning. And this is according to the foreign minister. You can read all about it inside China Daily. Initiative bringing early harvest for global good is another story. According to Xi's vision on global development initiative. Blinken's visit, first step in relaunching relations. Remember last week we had the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, making his maiden visit in China. And this seems to be thawing the frosty relationship they have had with the US, or US and China. That is the China Daily. This is the editorial cartoon. You know what is happening in Russia right now with the Wagner militants or the mercenaries. And we have Prigozhin with his troops going back to the bases, at least now, quelling the fears of another eruption of civil war in Russia. And this is what Gado has drawn for us inside the Standard this morning. Another rally circuit coming soon. And you can see the president there with the deputy president inside the Safari Rally car. On the sidelines, we have the Azimio Brigade, who are pitching for another spate of rallies or protests. This is what Ozone has drawn today. And we have Stano still on courier and pouring cold water on media. What an oily mess, the small rat says. These are the dailies. I'll run you by some of international dailies, like The Economist, as we continue pace with the conversation. Already we have in studio with us Abin Ali, Gladys Bose-Chule, who's the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. Also we have with us Dr. Makali Muli, who is Member of Parliament, Kitui Central. We'll be joined later by Farah Malim, Member of Parliament, Dadaab, and we'll be joined by Hilary Sigay, who's a Senator for Bomet. Right, let me just welcome this morning Gladys Bose-Chule. Good to see you.
Good to see
and
you.
Dr. Makali Mulu, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Right, so far, I want just to begin with you, Gladys. Last week was quite a week for you, I know, looking at what was going on in Parliament, and you graciously handled it very well. But I wanted just to hear from you, first of all. What are some of the challenges that you had in-house as far as passing the finance bill, the debates that were there, the filibustering that was coming from Azimio, now the challenges even moving ahead, that even after passing the finance bill, still, we have protest looming?
I think it was an exciting week. But also just looking back at Kenya's history and past finance bills, I think this was a very good showing. Despite people thinking it was chaotic, it was actually very exciting. It was good to see legislators being very passionate about their views on the finance bill. That means they're participating in the way things are run in the country, which is a positive thing, and it is what they are elected to do. So there was very good contributions by various members. One of them, Makali Mulu, he's one of the legislators who had read the bill, understood it, and actually made various suggestions on amendments, pointed out where he disagreed. There was Honorable Mbadi also, who made very good contributions. Honorable Nikal, I think those are the, was also very passionate about it. There was the leader of minority, Wandai, who contributed very well. There was your deputy whip, Mbui, Honorable Mbui. It was good to see that people had read it. But of course, there was also a large number of people who hadn't read it, who hadn't read the bill, and were just taking positions, you know. Yes, but it was exciting. In fact, many Kenyans asked me, have we ever had a finance bill before? Because they actually assumed this was the first one.
First debated that, very passionately.
Yes.
Like any other. Yes.
Yeah, so people actually thought, I said, no, there's been a finance bill every single year. Yeah, Moi had 24 finance bills over his 24 years as president. Kibaki had 10 years, 10 finance bills. Uhuru Kenyatta had 10 finance bills. And this is the first one, William Ruto.
But I think the issue is that it was not beamed as before.
Yes, but it shows that Kenyans are becoming, they are not it means public participation, as envisaged in our 2010 constitution, is actually paying off.
And civic education as well.
And civic education. It means Kenyans are aware. The fact that Kenyans can now question, and remember, you know, the whole start about how we ended up having parliaments is the world started to say no taxation without representation. So it is a good thing that Kenyans are actually questioning about it. You'll be surprised. I mean, there are people who never understood what actually happens in parliament. So just to see it played out, even the drama that we had in between is good because it kept Kenyans watching. And then and in the process of watching, they became educated. So I think the next one will even be more participatory. Even if you look at the way the public participation this time for the finance bill, they received 1,600 memorandum. They met 110 individual presentations before the committee. They had 181 institutions that appeared before the committee. And in fact, certain changes were actually made as a result of the public participation. So I think the story that was sold initially, that we will not change a comma or a full stop and so on, I remember telling people, no, that's why you have public participation. Thereafter, they make a report and they make changes, and changes were in fact made. On content creation, for example, which was at 15%, was subsequently reduced to 5%. Thanks to the petitions that were made before the committee, and of course people like Dr. Makali here, who raised the issue. So Kenyans must be encouraged to participate because they can actually effect change. Yes.
All right, let's talk about the nature of the debate, but I just want to hear from you before I go there to the nature of the debate also on the floor of the House, because you, as me, have been complaining about, you know, you're not given fair share of the debate processes, or put the question comes in very handy and quickly so that matter is not really debated.
But this time they had a free time.
They had a free time. Let's hear from here as well.
Okay, thank you to Baron, thank you our Deputy Speaker. I think it's good to have this debate this morning. You know, after we did the second reading, most Kenyans thought that we had actually passed the finance bill. You remember after the second reading?
Yes, that's it, yeah.
So most Kenyans thought that the finance bill was already passed and it was law. So that reading was a very interesting experience for most of us and Kenyans. And to us who are in Azimio, the first experience was, you know, initially, there was this Article 114, which stops members from discussing anything which is a money bill, which is termed to be a money bill, so that if you are proposing which changes either the issues of taxation and all that, you can't discuss, because it must go to the relevant committee before you discuss in the House.
Yes.
And that was the first handle we had to go over. And I must thank the Speaker, because most of our proposed amendments were actually to be stopped on the basis of Article 114. And after engaging the Speaker, he allowed some of the proposed amendments to be discussed. And to me, that was really where democracy was at play, and I think democracy won, where you allow people to say what they want to say, and on the basis of voting, those who are the majority will have their way, and then the others will have their say. And on the basis of that, we had a very, very interesting debate. I remember the first one was very tricky for us as Azimio, because the issue was divination of digital content, the digitization, digital content monetization. And then, you know, we had always been voting no. And now this one, Gladys put us in a situation where we had to vote yes. And I remember, it's like, you know, Kenyans out there, they knew we had voted no to this thing. Yes. Now the first clause was not to vote yes. So we were asking ourselves, we Kenyans now understand that we are voting yes? Because they would imagine we voted no.
Yes.
And I remember,
it was a bit confusing for Kenyans.
And even some people in the House are confused.
What's happening here?
I was sitting next to me, it was Elachi. And she was so concerned. Now we are voting yes. So I told her, this is just a clause. And as we move on, people will be able to catch up and realize that we are doing clause by clause.
So sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no.
Sometimes it's no. But I think as we continue, it came out very clear that really people are given time to articulate their issues, prosecute their amendments. And I think through that bill, Kenyans have learned a lot in terms of what Parliament does. So actually, I think in terms of appreciating the process of legislation,
all right,
Kenyans have really learned a lot. Okay. But it is good. At the end of the day, we said I think what Glass is saying is, in other bills, people would get to fiscal exchange. People would go there holding each other's shirts and all that. This time, I saw a lot of diplomacy, the way we did our work, that people would still accept that to Meshindwa, but we are there. We keep
but
on.
you also made your case.
You've made your case.
But I saw a very interesting article here in the People Daily on page 4. If you may just look at it, it says that why Azimio MPs backed finance bill despite threat to shoot it down. On page 4, just down there, I'll flip it over also for our viewers to see it so that we can read together. Then you tell me if it really does make any leak of sense. Where's the People Daily? Where did it go? All right, we look at it much later. But it says here,
page what?
Page 4. Page 4.
Standard
you can see it,
nation.
So it says that I'll just read an excerpt there. The bill on normal occasion is supposed to be tabled in the House before the finance bill, but in this case it was tabled after the finance bill was passed. It says this is on paragraph I think 2.
Which paper are you holding?
On page 4, People Daily.
Oh, People. Oh, okay.
People Daily. Have People Daily?
Yeah.
It
was in Nation.
So, Gladys, you there?
Yes.
So it says the executive wanted to see whether the MPs will pass the bill or not, and that it is why they delayed tabling that appropriations bill. Said an MP who attended the meeting but did not want to be named. MPs who attended the meeting said they were informed that the failure to pass the bill would lead to major cuts of various vote heads, which affect them directly. Among the departments that will have suffered includes Parliament, which has been allocated 41 billion shillings, the National Government Constituency Development Fund, and the National Government Affirmative Action Fund. Is that true?
No.
Magali, is that true?
That is not true.
You see, okay,
So what is the
first of
process?
all-
Yes.
First of all, every year in June, we must complete passing the budget and appropriations bill and the finance bill. That is standard practice. And not just in Kenya, I think the East African countries also have the same budget timelines as ourselves. So the country cannot run if you do not complete. That's why you find that MPs were sitting until 1 a.m. in the morning, because it is one of those bills that are time bound, and the running of the country is based on it. And so MPs don't have a choice to say we won't pass the finance bill. And in any case, the budget policy statement is normally read is normally available from maybe February.
Yeah, February.
February. So already everybody knew what areas have been what budget lines we have. Yes, broadly. It's just the details that are now done in the budget appropriation and the finance bill. So the budget process, making process, starts as early as February. Even by December, Treasury are already having discussions about the budget.
Yes.
By the time we get the budget policy statement circulated, will be in February, and we know the broad areas. Then the finance bill is now, we've budgeted to do the following. But now where are we getting the money to finance that budget? So hence the reason why you have then the finance bill. So it can't be that there was some wheeler dealing or some discussions in the night
So that,
about it. Yes,
the money
this
from
is
what
just
you
mere
stamped,
speculation.
if you don't- So maybe that's why you went close by close. So people were actually now confused.
Yes,
Why
and,
are we going
yes, and
close
people,
by close?
like he says, when they were going close by close. At some point, initially, for example, I'll give these two examples. The payment for the motor vehicles, I think it was 3,000 shillings. That was been proposed in the finance bill, and then for the content creators, the tax from 15%, it was 15%. So of course the position of Azimio at that time was that this is too high, and they ventilated on it. I think Honorable Bakali had an amendment. I think Honorable Badi, Honorable Kaluma, they all had amendments on this issue. But when the chairperson stood up to propose his own amendments, he said, actually, as a result of the public participation, that was said, we have actually reduced it from 15% to 5%. And reduced from 3,000 to 2,500. But Azimio still voted no against it, which means they were voting to retain it at 15%. And that is actually, that's why I say it got confusing at some point. But you see, the image of Kenyans Because at that time, I think the issue was you should always vote no. Vote against it anyway. But this was a good proposal which was agreeing with them. And they voted no. Yes.
So you voted no?
No, you know.
Were they informed about voting no? Or,
you know, normally what would happen, in a situation where you have a proposed amendment, some of us had put our own amendments. Like for me, I remember, I'd actually put it to a level that you delete the clause. Instead of now having even the 1.5, the 5% for digital content, my proposal was 0, so that you don't tax and do the digital content. So, you know, there are situations where you find the kind of proposals you are making after you articulate your issue, then automatically it flows that since your amendment has not been carried, then you always vote no, because automatically you are voting against your own proposal. But situations where I remember like what she's saying, the issue of moving the money from 3,000 to 25. Members were saying if you charge 3,000 to the transporters to bring the vehicle, it's obvious this cost will be pushed to the consumer, the final consumer. So most of the voting for no was to protect the final consumer, so that it is like saying really this should not be there at all. That was where the confusion would look like. But you know, by voting no obvious, then you retain what is in the bill. That's normally the proposal. But to me, I think what we are reading, what it shows is that you know, it's lack of understanding really the budgeting process.
Right, so that sequencing, as they put it, is
because the thing is initially,
and also I think you see there was a, and I must say, and sometimes I'll take responsibility for that, because ordinarily we should have started with the chairperson's proposal.
Yes.
But if the chairperson's proposal carried the day,
then the rest
of your amendments would fall.
Yes.
But then it would have looked draconian that you've not been given a chance to articulate your amendments. So we ended up letting them articulate the amendments first and then bring the chairperson's proposal. Then that's where the confusion now came. But I think within a few minutes, I think the members got it. But at that point, it was about political.
So what I wanted to comment was this.
But still, it was still good just to see that level of democracy. It doesn't happen anywhere in the world, believe me.
Yeah, sure.
Many people who are watching were saying it was just good to see Kenyan MPs were actually very aware of what was going on. They were clear on what position they wanted to take, and they got the chance to articulate it. And it means that the next time we have the finance bill, I think there'll be a better I think the various caucuses will have a better strategy even. So it will improve.
So, Mokali, were you happy on the floor of the House this time forth as far as the debate was concerned?
No, I think it was the star. I think out of the process, to me,
all this, the first reading, second reading, that we saw
I think in terms of the process, we must give it to the speaker panel, because really, they tried to manage the process. And I think everybody, at the end of the day, even though we lost in terms of voting as a minority group, but we appreciate that we were given a chance to prosecute our arguments. And I can tell you, at the end of the day, there were serious arguments against some of the clauses, even though the clause would still pass through the voting. But you could see really even the other side. They were appreciating some of the things we were saying makes a lot of sense. And that's why I've said, for me now, the bill is going to be signed and become an act of parliament. Now, the other level is the implementation part. And that's why people now realize whether some of the things we were saying were just mere statements or were things which made a lot of sense in terms of when it comes to implementation. And that is going to dawn on us very soon, not very far from, because I think the president might sign the bill to law this week. And some of the proposed taxes will become effective 1st of July.
All right.
So I can tell you by next week, towards the end of next week, now we will be seeing who was saying the truth. Because it just
towards the end of next week.
It will come to the table.
But Honorable Makali, you must admit that on account of the public participation, various changes were made, which was, I think it's important for Kenyans to know that they were heard, and many of the changes that they proposed were effected.
But
No, that's a fact.
were they cherry-picked? You know, some of the contentious one, like the fuel levy or fuel tax to 16%, was one of the proposals that Kenyans were really agitating for, but we glossed over that.
So
was there cherry-picking as far as also the finance committee was concerned?
You see, when you appear before the committee, or even when you raise your view in Parliament, you can't just say, you can either say you want the whole clause deleted, or you can say, I want to make an amendment. But you can't just say no to it. You have to give a counter proposal.
Okay.
Because remember, this is to finance the budget. So if you delete a clause that was going to raise, let's say, 20 billion shillings, then you must give an alternative of where the 20 billion will be found. It can't just... so it's a give and take. You can't completely say no to all the taxes. Then how will you finance?
Thank you.
Yeah, or you can say the alternative is we borrow. And so if you look at the issue of the fuel, there was a logic behind it. It was creating room for people to avoid and evade tax. Because when you have two VAT regimes, then people can hide under the 8% one. I can always import have products and log them in as petroleum products, then I pay 8% instead of 16%. So it also was a loophole. So having a uniform VAT regime also closes those loopholes. Hence the reason why you find that Kenya says we only collect 52% of the VAT we are supposed to be collecting. We should be collecting 100%. That is why, as a country, we're not able, we have to end up borrowing. I know that people said that there was the counter argument of what was presented before the committee that yes, if you put it at 16%, then the cost of living and everything will go up. But the counter argument by economists was that the world prices on petroleum products, of petroleum, is going down. So what will happen is eventually it will balance out. It will balance out. Yeah, so you won't have a huge change in the price.
Right, and we pray that it does soon. Let's just hear from Senator Hilary Segei. He's been missing in action, flying off the radar. You can tell us where he has been. But I know also being part of the bipartisan team, yeah, so he elected to be away so that he doesn't seem to be compromising some of the sentiments that will be in that particular. I think that is good. It's a good show. It's a good, wisest way of actually handling the whole situation. But it collapsed. Is there a resumption of it? There is now also the Azimio back on the streets again. So will this issue of bipartisan be one of the catnip issues they will be raising?
Thank you. I'm happy to be back. Good to see you as well. To my colleagues from the National Assembly, I'm happy to see you again. And job well done last week. I must appreciate the fact that we had a robust debate in the National Assembly leading to the passage of the finance bill, which is still...
So the template of debate has been set, so we need to also go a notch higher than that in the Senate?
Definitely. But, well, this is the finance bit.
Improve the argument, don't raise your voice. So they say.
Improve the argument. And they actually did that. Don't raise your voice. They actually did that. And that is what exactly Honorable Makali is saying. That they were given that opportunity, they actually had a debate on it, they raised issues, and ultimately the majority had their day in the course of that. Well, you've said something about me having been missing in action and whether or not bipartisan talks have collapsed. Indeed, remember the Kenya Kwanza went into the talks with a very objective mind. When we did receive issues, we had those issues to be dealt with by the team. We had the mindset of the need to deal with the issues at a level where we are not debating them off the talks, or rather the team that had been assigned that responsibility. Part of the TOR was not to engage in the media about the issues which we were discussing, and that's one of the reasons why we haven't really been out here to discuss them. The talks have not collapsed. I must say that. As far as Kenya Kwanza is concerned, we have not dealt with the issues as were raised wholesomely. Some have fallen off the sides because of the time and also the changes that have generally been happening. And I believe also the mindset of a number of Kenyans, and particularly my colleagues from the opposition, where a good number of them have seen that indeed there is positive trajectory in the desire by the Kenya Kwanza government to resolve some of the issues they had raised. Remember, they had around 8 issues. We also had 8 issues which we were to discuss. A number of those issues have naturally resolved itself in the course of this debate, including that which every one of us has seen. The cost of living, indeed, yes, is high, but is there that mind in the government of the day to resolve them? Is there an effort that we are seeing to bring it down, or at least to make it sustainable, and also appreciate the calls by the Kenyans to do it? So we're still in it. The latest call by our colleagues that they want to go back to the streets is, of course, one of those things that we are saying. It goes against the TORs that we had agreed upon in the beginning. And so it shows the kind of the desire that they had at the time of calling for the talks. Remember, they're the ones who called for the talks, by the way. Remember, they're the ones who said, look, we need to do this. And so a number of those issues which we had almost arrived at a position which was mutually supported by, the Kenya Kwanza and Azimio, are still open for us to resolve. The issue on the IEBC is still available. We had taken a position that was very objective, and they had similar position which we were most likely going to agree. The issue on the IEBC preservation of what according to them they call the servers, we had a position, they had a position. So from where we sit, we are still available for the talks so that we resolve those which you can resolve in the short term. We deal with those which are medium term within the context of what the bipartisan had aimed at. And for the long term, we deal with it within the confines of the law. What really had taken us as the most basic